Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. My name is Nikita Ren Thigpen. I'm a balance and relationship advisor. Excited to be here with you today. Thank you for slowing down from your scrolling of your feed. Hopefully, you will slow down long enough to give me a few minutes of your time. I'm a balance and relationship advisor serving power couples, married women entrepreneurs, and a few bold leaders that are ready to be activated so they can recalibrate and own their right to be intentionally selfish. Today and every Wednesday, God willing, going forward at noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time, give or take with a few technical challenges like today's beautiful day, I'm going to make sure to bring you some how to deeper dive steps from some of the conversations that we've been having over at the Balance Boldly podcast. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I've been podcasting for roughly about 9 years since 2012. And we have this wonderful, amazing podcast called Balance Boldly for ambitious women in business and a few brave men because we love our men too. And we're always talking about how to move beyond the burnout of just surviving whatever is going on in life so you can thrive in work life and in love. Everything we do on the Balance Bully podcast is really helping you peel back the layers of what's going on. And typically, I'm interviewing other incredible experts from every industry that you can imagine, from engineers, tech gurus, personal development specialists, mental health counselors, social media gurus, and the list goes on and on and on. And they're pulling back the curtain and letting you know how they're creating work life and love balance their way. And in that high level conversation, when they're sharing their stories, there are all kinds of gems dropped, all kinds, all the time. But, because of the nature of podcasts, we want to be mindful to allow the stories to breathe, to really get at the heart of how they've created this new version of themselves, that they stopped being held back to the old ways of being and moved into a new. So we can't always go as deep as we want into some of those wonderful tools that they're providing, those balance and personal development tools. Once in a while, we'll get one or two that we go really deep in, but usually it's like 50,000 foot view. So, in these Live Fully LinkedIn Live and Twitter Live Wednesdays that we're going to do every single Wednesday, again, God willing, technical challenges notwithstanding, I want to make sure we take one of those things to go deeper on. There's over 155 episodes that are live, guys, for the ones that we still have public. So there's plenty to digest and to binge on if you want to do a new version of podcast and chill and go through all the things. And I implore you to definitely check out the podcast, subscribe, rate it, review it, be honest about what you think so we can make sure that when we show up here live on Wednesdays that we're giving you the information that you really want and we can go deep where it's necessary. Something that came up probably over the last 3 months from a lot of the different conversations that I was having in my personal ecosystem, as well as the professional one via expert interviews, colleagues, inner circles, incubators, and all those things that I'm a part of to own my own personal development and continue my own growth journey. Something that's been a staple, a thin thread that's been showing, and we talk about it a lot on the BBP, which I affectionately have acronyms from the Balance Bully podcast, is shaking shame. For many of you who have been in my ecosystem, inside my first connections here on LinkedIn and Twitter, a lot of you know I've been a super advocate about shaking shame. There's a lot of things we can do. Brene Brown talks about, vulnerability being the cure of it. She's 1,000% right. But vulnerability being the cure is kind of like after the surgeon has done its work. But what about when you're diagnosing, when you're trying to figure out if shame is the thing that's anchoring you and holding you back to your past? What do you do from that moment that you realize, wait a minute, something is out of sync, something is wrong, something just ain't right. I don't know what's happening with me. I normally can do so much more, be so much more. I've been through so much more than this moment. Why do I feel like I'm a little bit stuck or just kind of in neutral at a crossroads? A lot of the times it's because we don't know how to diagnose what's happening, and there are blocks that are coming up before we can even get to a point of going for a consultation, if you will, with the surgeon to say, hey, I'm pretty sure this is what it is. Run your tests and your scans to confirm it, and let's get it out. Before you can get there, you have to really be listening to your body as well as your environment to see what are the signals that are coming up for you. One of the signals that comes up for so many of our clients. And our power couples are incredible. Many of them are celebrities and popular, figures. Many of them are not. Many of our clients, most of our clients are high level VPs and directors at major companies. They are engineers, te- telecom and what was the word? Technical experts, because there's all these little titles I'm trying to think of without necessarily giving away exactly who they are. They're newscasters and all kinds of different people that you wouldn't necessarily recognize if you saw them on the street, but they make really incredibly crucial decisions that impact many of our lives. For how our water runs in our bathroom, to whether or not our plumbing is going through the way it needs to in certain states that they have cachet and influence in. They are those secret change makers all over. Often, what comes up as a signal is when they start doubting themselves. They realize something isn't right. They haven't necessarily diagnosed it as shame right away, but they know something isn't right. So, if we're already working together, of course, we can get to that diagnosis really quick and cut out the root. But before they get to me, those power couples and those married women entrepreneurs that are out here changing the world in their own way, often the doubt seeps in and clouds them to the point they start being really unkind to themselves and negative. Crushing negative self talk is the first step. And recognizing that shame is, in fact, one of the challenges because it's smothering. It's kind of like a calcified chaos, if you will, that's causing all these rifts in your world. You're questioning everything. Am I making this right decision with taking this new job? Should I be considering leaving this job? Should I create this new business division? Is this partnership a good one for me? Talking about a professional partnership. You might be questioning about that in your personal relationships too, but that is a whole nother episode, like a whole nother conversation. But a lot of times it's that swirl of analysis paralysis that's coming up because of the doubt. Underneath of that is the shame. And of course, there can be many other things: guilt, resentment, regrets, all of those other things. But right now, we're talking about how to really recognize that it's shame and get rid of it so we can move through to the next step. And we're going to break this down every Wednesday. So I don't want to overwhelm you with too many personal development tools and information. So there's four different types of negative self-talk. Today, we're just going to talk about two, and next Wednesday, which I think is March 9th off the top of my head, we're going to talk about the next two. The first one is when we personalize. We're literally blaming ourselves as if we've caused something to happen. So the negative self-talk typically comes up when you have a decision to make, something that you either have to do or potentially want to do, right? If it's a have to do, sometimes we're questioning, and then imposter syndrome kind of rises depending on where you're at in the process. We're questioning if we can even do it, if we're able to achieve it. We're not even looking at the fact that we've had so many incredible accomplishments that have proven to us that we can do it. We're in this space, a whole new one, saying, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the right person. I don't know if I have the capacity. I don't know if I have the skill. A lot of those things are coming up. And I'm being nice with the language that I'm using. You know how you talk to yourself. You typically are using way more colorful language when you're fussing at yourself for whatever is going on. The first step to figuring out what to do with this level of negative self talk is to ask, what proof do you have? Simple, but not easy. What proof do you have that it's your fault, that you are the problem, that you can't do something, whatever that language is that's coming up for you? What proof do you have? You got to find some. Take yourself out of your normal, intimate self for a second and almost look at yourself like you're your own consultant, your own coach, your own advisor. Just for a moment to examine, what proof do you have? Do Nancy Drew style if you have to. Oh, I don't actually have proof that I can't do this. Maybe one, because I've never done this thing, whatever that thing is, before. Two, I've already shown that I've gotten to this place at 30 some, 40 some, 50 some, 60 some years old, and I've done a lot of things. Maybe not exactly quite like this, but those transferable skills, those hard lessons that I've had to grow through in order to earn them, have prepared me for this moment. So you start to literally, have these conversations. And I don't mean in a way that makes you nervous about whether or not you're having a mental health breakdown. You're just having conversations with yourself to really get at the root of where it's coming from. Quick and dirty. Ask yourself, what proof do I have? If you're personalizing. The second form of negative self talk is when we magnify things. Magnifying, which looks like filtering, is we take all the other fantastic things that are going on in our life. The fact that we woke up this morning, breath in our body, mobility of our limbs, soundness of mind, like all of it, all the good things. And I spoke from a very personal level just now, but you might go out into the bigger things. You just crushed this amazing meeting this morning or last week, or earned another $1 million, whatever it is, whatever those accomplishments were that were going on. Sometimes we filter all of that good stuff and we magnify the negative. That negativity bias, which is a psychological concept, and we're not going to go super deep there, that's something that most humans do. You're not alone, so let's normalize that first and foremost. It wasn't necessarily a tip, but let's just be honest. Let's normalize the fact that many of us will scroll through our comments on LinkedIn, Twitter, IG, or whatever, and all the "you go girl, you did that, I love that, tell them," and you'll focus on the one that says, "Why did you wear that color?" Right? Like something that has nothing to do with anything good that's happening in your world. And we will zone in on that. And many of us handle that zoning in, whatever that thing you zoned in on that was negative and you magnified it, we'll handle it in different ways. The way that you crush that version of negative self talk is really in using a little bit more celebration. You know what? Why did I wear that color? I look good in that color. I wanted to play with color. I love playing. I'm bold enough to play with color, right? You can play with this by celebrating something positive around yourself. And again, I'm picking on something that's a little bit intangible, like someone trolling in the comments. Most of us know you quell them by not going in and clapping back and doing all those things. It's not worth it because you're giving them what you need. But look at something in your life that's actually happening. Look at you magnifying not being good enough to go after this next new client, or to create that new version of your business, or to have this really crucial. I will go and say, one of my colleagues who is a dear sister friend, Jeannie Cooper, who is amazing. If you guys are not following her, make sure you do. She really is magical at helping people have warrior conversations. These are crucial conversations that need to be held in order to move the needle to make whatever change she's adapting that day, that week, that month with her clients, right? You have to be able to celebrate your positives in order to be bold and strong enough to be in the room and have these warrior conversations, even with yourself. So there's an activity that I do with a lot of my private clients, and including those that are in what we have is called the UB Lab, which stands for Unbound Brilliance Lab. It's more of a sounding board for a lot of our married women entrepreneurs that are just managing all the things in work life, and love, right? In this, there's an activity that I love to do. We usually do it roughly once a quarter, sometimes every 6 months, depending on what's going on with everyone. And you can get out a piece of paper right now while you're listening to this, or when you hit this on replay, piece of paper, make it magical, get a big old whiteboard. You can be as creative as you want, but it's three things that needs to be on here to help you crush this filtering version of negative self-talk, where you magnify whatever the negative is and you're not necessarily seeing all the other good. Three things you need to write. You can do it in a column, 3 columns, or you can just take some stickies, which is always what I recommend. Take, 3 different colors of stickies and get your visual access going on for your brain. First thing you want to write down is, what are you excited for? What's coming up for you that you're excited about? So if you want to go by quarter, this is technically, we're going into the second quarter in a few weeks. Second quarter, what are you excited about? What's on your agenda? And you're not necessarily looking at the micro details of goals, just really high level things. Maybe you plan on purchasing a home. Maybe you are getting one of your kids to get their license, like whatever it is, like what, and maybe that takes a lot of weight and burden off of your shoulders with everything else you have going on. Whatever it is, just maybe like 5 to 8 things that you can think of that you're excited for, especially if you're doing it from a quarterly perspective. If you're doing it weekly or monthly, you can just choose one or two. But let's just stick with the 5 to 8. I'm excited for these 5 things. Okay, there's a little shift happening in your brain when you start looking at your future and planning for it and being excited about it. Second thing, what do I appreciate that I already have? As a woman of God, as a lover of love, as someone who absolutely honors health in order to thrive, because God knows I've been in too many situations with having a rare autoimmune and other things going on in my life. When you do not have your health, you super appreciate when you do have it, right? When you are full, able body in whatever way that is for you, you really do miss those small things that are disabled in that moment until you get it back, right? So for me, I would absolutely start with I appreciate breath in my body, something so small. The fact that I can breathe without pain, mobility of my limbs, cognition of my mind. I start right there and then I expand out because I'm all about expansion. Then I'll start to include my husband, my kids, my grandkids, my colleagues. I'm an intercessor, so all of those that I stand to pray for and to support and exhort, all of those things, I expand out. And then I'll get into the weeds of maybe some business things that I'm really, really appreciative of that have been going on for the last 11 years, like all of those things. And that list can be as long or as succinct as you want it slash needed to be. I'm a little verbal, as you can see. So my appreciate list is usually really full. But let me tell you what it's not as full as. That third thing. We got what we're excited for, what we appreciate, and what we have already accomplished. Honey, let me have a moment of vanity and tell you that that list, when I am being honest with myself, is longer than multiple dissertations put together in a binder, and you need encyclopedia volumes of it to hold what I have accomplished personally as well as professionally. Now, that's a lot of stickies. So you don't have to do all of that. You can just look at what you accomplished in the last month, the last week, the last year. If you're doing the quarterly version of this, look at what you accomplished last quarter. Sometimes that helps set you up. Now, if you had some challenges last quarter, maybe that's not the standard that you hold yourself against, because maybe that's putting you into a spiral of filtering even more. Like, oh, well, I haven't done anything the last 3 months, and this is why I don't have the energy to do XYZ coming up. This is why I don't feel powerful, bold enough, warrior enough to do that next thing. Okay, that's fair. The last 2 years have been wacky for most people. Wacky good for some, wacky not good for many, many others. Wherever you fall in that is your business. But you also have proof, going to that first negativity issue of personalizing, you do have proof that you have been able to survive up until this point. So you definitely have great things that you can put on your accomplished list. You just have to get out of your head just enough. How I said, Nancy Drew it, step outside of yourself, be your own advisor, your own investigator, and look at, all right, last 3 months, a little shaky. Okay, let's look at 6 months ago, 18 months ago, 5 years ago, wherever you have to go to get the gold to remind yourself of who you are, that's where you go. Do you understand? That is exactly where you go. This none of this is new to you. This feeling, this challenging feeling of being suffocated and anchored to this past version of yourself, you are choosing to do it because you are refusing to investigate the proof that already existed in your life, telling you you are worthy, you have deserved, and you've earned the right to be in this very moment, reminding yourself with reflection and celebration that you can shake the shame. You have already gathered all the receipts, as the young folks would say, that you need, but you put them in a shopping bag somewhere and throw it at the top of the the top/back of the closet and you forgot they were there. Pull them receipts out. Do those three things: piece of paper, big old board, take a whole wall. One of my clients literally dedicated a whole wall in her creative space to do this. Whatever is necessary, do it and remind you of who you are. You do not have to be stuck, anchored, and or smothered by the shame of your past if you don't want to. If you allow me to guide you in this, show up here every Wednesday, go binge the Balance Boldly podcast and all those expert interviews and all the things. See the ways that I've grown over the years of doing it. I think we started that podcast about 2017, that version of it. There's plenty of stuff there, and there will be plenty more every week. If you're really ready, let's come on over to Twitter. Thursdays at noon for a in real live time conversation all about being intentionally selfish. We're going to do it in Twitter Space, as they say, because Twitter Space has answered Clubhouse and they've created their own version of pods that you can have live audio conversations. All you have to do is follow me at Ask Nikita. I'm at Ask Nikita everywhere except for LinkedIn. I'm under my full legal name, Nikita Ren Thigpen. Come on over there, 12 o'clock tomorrow, for roughly about 20 minutes to a half an hour, where we'll have a live conversation every Thursday. Thursdays on Twitter, we're going deeper. Remember when I started this, I told you that the Balance Boldly podcast is kind of like the 50,000 foot view version of the conversation for moving beyond surviving so you can thrive in work, life, and love. And then here, we're kind of at the maybe 2,000 foot view when we go on Twitter and have these audio conversations where you get to ask and answer, raise your hand, come to the stage, or just listen, whatever it is that works for you, that is going below the surface. We're talking about everything healing and thriving. That's where more of the woo is discussed. That's where those conversations with some of those feature experts that were also on the BBP, on the Balance Bully podcast, will show up and take you under the surface too for some of the deeper work. How you can live in that space of and, that where you don't have to choose this or that. You are empowered to have it all in the way that you deserve and the way in which you have expanded your capacity to receive. You can have it all. I stand by that as a living representative of it. You can have it all. We just have to expand your capacity. And some of it is going to take some other underneath healing work. That's where some of the let's go see the surgeon work is, if you will. So if you just want 50,000 foot view, Balance Boldly podcast, which is amazing. And we show up there weekly with all kinds of experts and a few solo rants from me too. Here is the how to deeper dive of at least one of those things every single week so you can really take it and apply it. And on Thursdays in Twitter Space, specifically, which you'll see in Twitter, you just look at the bottom, look for those four little circles in a diamond shape, click it. And if you're following at Ask Nikita, you'll get those notifications already to let you know when we're live, and you just join it. You come in and join when you can, and you leave when you need to go. It's all good. But I hope that you're really ready for those in real time conversations. I would love to say in person, but right now they're just audio in real time. All right. I hope this was good for you. I would love to hear your feedback and your takeaways below, wherever you're hearing this from. Let me know what came up for you. If you want to email me something a little bit more personal, email me at asknikita@figpro.com. We'll make sure that information is below. And tell me what's going on. How can I support you? Maybe we just need to have a cup of tea and talk it out in roughly 15 or 20 minutes because, we got to make sure that we are balancing my time as well as yours. I'm Nikita Ren Thigpen, and I look forward to seeing you the same time next week right here. Talk soon.